All right, welcome back to another Sunday night with TSP the Scuttlebutt. How's everyone doing?
Good, good. Thanks for having me.
Hey, actually, hey, thanks for hopping on. I want to give a shout out to all of our Patreon members. We appreciate it. We couldn't do that if it wasn't for you guys. Our show sponsor, Proven Valor. I just want to mention we have a couple great episodes coming up. Next Sunday is actually August 7th, and it's National Purple Heart Day. So we're gonna have a panel of Purple Heart recipients on and get their stories. My co-host Andrew, he's actually a Purple Heart recipient. Previous episodes, if you missed it, last Sunday we interviewed a Navy fighter pilot who punched out at 0.95 Mach, which has never, well, I believe it's been done before, but nobody's ever survived it before.
It broke every single bone in his body, and I hats off to him, man.
Yeah,
Lieutenant Keegan, Lieutenant Gill, hoorah, Smurf.
Yeah, it was an amazing story of survival. The doctors told him that he would never walk again. Not only did he prove them wrong and got up and walked, he actually checked out to fly his fighter plane again, which
he flew again. Incredible.
It's amazing to me.
That's the Navy and the Marine Corps, man. We do not give up. We don't stop fighting ever.
I was watching that. I watched that episode with my daughter on my lap, and I kept being like, "Can you believe this?" And she was like, "Dad, I have no idea what they're talking about."
I was amazed. My mouth was like open the entire time. I was like, "Holy shit!"
I had some more good news. You guys,
pray tell, Commander, pray tell.
Do you guys remember a fella named Lieutenant Colonel Scheller?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yes. Oh, you got that interview. We got the interview. No shit.
I spoke with him. He gave me his cell phone number. And
no fucking way.
I swear to God, he's gonna be on the show, man. So
eat your heart out, Travis Parrington and Oscar Mike Radio. Eat your heart out.
He wants me to text him with the context and some dates, and he said he would try to get scheduled on here. So
just kidding, Travis. I love you, man.
80% sure he'll be on the show.
I love you, Travis. I'm just kidding. I'm just giving you a hard time.
So when I'm not podcasting, I have two podcasts, by the way. I have a sports podcast in the morning, and all that money that I generate from that podcast goes to youth sports. The money that comes out of this podcast goes to I started a nonprofit, and what we're going to start doing is we're going to take veterans to sporting events, NHL games, NBA, NFL, and not just send them, but we're going to send them with a mentor so they have somebody to talk to that night. And
that's awesome.
We feel that talking is the best medicine for committing suicide. A lot of our brothers and sisters are committing suicide. It's a damn shame. Our goal is to stop, and we're not going to stop until that number gets to 0. So
you're here.
When I'm not podcasting or at work, I'm usually on social media. So I was cruising around social media one time, and I ran across Alex Hollings' Instagram, and I was like, okay, this doesn't make sense. This guy sounds very intelligent, and he's a Marine.
Hey, man. Hey. Enough of that horse shit, all right?
I actually did a TV show on the CW a year or so ago, and the host said the same thing on air. She was like,
"Shut up."
A sailor, a veteran. But she was like, "Wow, you know a lot about this stuff. That surprises me. I didn't think Marines could read."
Wait, what show did you do on the CW?
Oh, I want a Mysteries Decoded. I want to say.
Nice. I've seen that. Yep, I've seen that.
I've done a couple of those now. They bring me on to be the naysayer when I talk about aviation programs that could feasibly explain away some UFO sightings. So I'm always the last guy, like the guy they bring in to be the fun police.
So you're an ancient mysteries kind of guy with what's his name?
Giorgio Tsoukalos, honestly.
That guy, him.
I'll do it. Yeah, I'll take that. That'd be all right.
Hey, Andrew, Alex only lives about an hour away from us, so wouldn't it be cool if we get
Where does he live? Where do you live, Alex?
Wait, we want to get him. Let's get him to a meeting and have him talk to the group.
That's a great idea. We need you next month.
Yeah,
August 18th.
He lives in Chattanooga.
What are you guys doing?
We have our VFW meeting every third Thursday at 18:30 at the Murfreesboro Airport Business Center.
Yeah, I'm down. That'd be cool.
You get free food, and you get to hear me run my suck for about an hour.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah, we'll try to work that out. So
and we're very Marine heavy in our VFW.
Yeah,
I mean,
very.
we got a lot of 3.8 guys because I convinced a lot of my 3.8 guys to join because 3.8 is awesome. We are the fiercest warriors in the Marine Corps, and I know I'm going to get a lot of flack.
Am I right? Is that Dark Horse 3.8? Is that
No, Dark Horse. That's Dark Horse 3.7. We're Dark Horse. We're 3.8. We're God's Battalion, and the Commandant of the Marine Corps got rid of us last year. So,
gotcha. Fair enough.
Our colors folded, but that's happened 5 times in the 3.8's history. We are going to come back when we have to fight another war. It's fine. We're okay with that because we are the best war fighters out there. TM.
Right on.
That's right. Trademark.
So,
I trademarked that shit.
Yeah, there's so many Marines. Sometimes when I leave the meeting, I have like a rash.
Oh, God.
Yeah, you'll have that.
No, seriously, he's not kidding. The last time we had 2, what was it, like 3 weeks ago? We had a master gunnery sergeant retired, and we had a sergeant major, Earl Budd, who's still in, and Richard Fleek had to mute because he had no idea what the hell we were talking about.
Yeah, I just sat back and let him talk. And they're like, one of them actually said, "Hey, Richard has a podcast, but does he ever talk?" I was like, "You three are just chatting away like a bunch of chatty Cathys, man. I don't have a way to work my way into the conversation."
Well, that's
my wife says too. If you put more than 3 Marines in a room, everybody else can check out.
Well, it's funny that sergeant major knew every single one of my commanding officers, platoon commanders, platoon sergeants. Like I only did 4 years, but he knew everyone that was in charge of me. This is kind of crazy.
I have trouble remembering the names of my coworkers.
Yeah.
You know.
Now let's get into your story.
Yes.
Why'd you join the damn Marine Corps, dude?
Sure. Well, I suppose right off the bat, 9/11. You know, I was a junior in high school when 9/11 happened, and I was actually skipping school when 9/11 happened. But I was a football player. I needed to be at school by 11 to be able to go to practice that day. So I was just kind of leisurely taking a shower when I heard about the first crash. And as I watched it unfold, I got scared, you know, and I ended up going to school because I was hoping that at school they would have some kind of understanding of what was going on, or maybe they could provide me with some context. And I realized pretty quickly that they didn't either. And I think that was when I realized, okay, something really big like this. This is bigger than just an emergency or a catastrophe. This is the beginning of something.
Right.
And my intent right off the bat in a big way was to join the military. And my dad was a Vietnam veteran in the Army who did not want me to join the military. He actually was a nursing home administrator for the Vermont Veterans Home. So we spent a lot of time around veterans. And he was very veteran oriented, but did not want his sons to serve. And luckily for him, I suppose, I ended up breaking my leg really bad that football season. Had to have a couple of surgeries to put my leg back together. So when I tried to go enlist, they wouldn't take me in 2003 because I had metal in my leg. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I can't do that. I'll go figure something else out. My plan had been to play college football, but because of my leg, I only got some offers from some D3 schools with no scholarships. I was broke, you know. So I went and got a job working as a pit mechanic for a race team in Connecticut, thanks to my brother, who is an incredible driver and mechanic. He's got a lot of the skill in the family, and did that for a while. But then I was like, you know what? I'll try taking some classes. I'll try going to school. I was super fortunate and didn't realize it, but I got a scholarship for writing, which to me at the time was just like, oh, sure, everybody gets scholarships. I didn't realize how lucky I was. And I didn't take it very seriously. So I spent about a year in school before I dropped out and went back to just turning wrenches. And but then my wife got sick. Not like a crazy normal illness, you know, just a cold that turned into pneumonia. But neither of us had health insurance. She was my girlfriend at the time. We lived together. So I went to the recruiter's office and I was like, hey, you know, they wouldn't take me before. But by then it was 2006, and I was like, I heard they're taking just about everybody now. So maybe my leg isn't such a big deal. And the recruiter was like, yeah, man, when do you want to ship out? And I was like, well, when does health insurance start? And he was like,
Nice.
And he said, so I said, okay, I'll go when is the soonest date I can leave. So I met him on Wednesday. I got married on Thursday. I shipped out on Sunday and found out my MLS when I finished MCT. I got admin, which I wasn't stoked with at the time, but ended up working out really well for me. I joined the Marine Corps in a real rush, but it wasn't necessarily not well thought out. I had wanted to serve for a long time, and I was a pretty physically fit guy. I was a pretty smart guy, and I just kind of I felt as though like I'm smart enough to know which way to point a rifle. I'm fit enough to be able to run while I carry it. And there's other guys out there right now doing it, and I felt a lot of guilt about not being a part of that. So even though it was really hurried, it wasn't necessarily that. It ended up being really the best thing for me. My first duty station was 29 Palms, which my recruiter even said, he's like, man, if I were you, I would hate my recruiter.
Yeah, that's gross. That's a horrible duty station right there. Horrible.
But you know what, though? In some ways,
I hate 29 Palms.
It was the best for me, though. I was 21 when I got in, and I had kind of lost touch with some of my buddies from high school. And being in 29 Palms threw me right back into that environment. I was really close with my team. It's 45 minutes to a Walmart. So if you're not on duty, you're just hanging out with the same guys anyway. We're just going to go play football in the field or, find something else to do. I ended up making some really, really good friendships while I was there. And then also because I wasn't really interested in learning my job, I didn't learn to appreciate it until later. I had my hand in the air for everything. And 29 Palms offers tons of opportunities to go become a martial arts instructor and a range coach. And, so I did the McMap thing for a long time.
And it has a great chow hall.
And it does have, honestly, and I was
that's the only thing that's the only thing at 20. They had flat screen TVs in 2006. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
They had a salad bar that was crazy, mad good. I was in 29 Palms in 2006 in January to for a month for CAX.
So you were there literally right before I arrived.
Right before you arrived, I was there. Yes, sir. Holy shit. That's pretty cool.
I'll say, I'm from Vermont. The heat wasn't my favorite, but over the humidity you get down here, I'm in Chattanooga now. I will take 130 degrees in the dry with battle rattle on over 90 degrees in Chattanooga, I'll be honest.
Alex, I give you a lot of props, man, saying that you're from Vermont, because I grew up guess where I grew up?
I don't know. Where'd you grow up?
Exeter, New Hampshire. One state over.
Not far.
No, I used to go through Vermont all the time to go to camp. Glen Burnie, New York, Adirondack Camp, and Fort Ticonderoga.
Yeah,
we're through Vermont all the time.
Ground. I was born in Oswego, New York. Used to go.
Yeah, I know Oswego.
I've got family in upstate New York still. All my best friends are still in Bennington. I'm all over that area, New England. But we ended up moving down here after I ended up getting hurt in the Marine Corps, not in a cool combat way. I played football for the Best of the West Championship Marine Corps team for 2 seasons. And then I was really fortunate. I had just these incredible coaches on the football team. One of whom was now retired Sergeant Major Mark Aleko, he's just a Kodiak bear of a man, just a huge guy. And he was always talking about his days fighting. He was a Muay Thai fighter, which was a terrifying prospect for me because he was like 6'6", 340 pounds. And this guy's telling me that he fights. But I was really big into McMap, the Marine Corps Martial Arts program. And by then I was already a brown belt. I had to get a bunch of waivers to get it because I was, I think, still a Lance Corporal at the time.
You were a brown belt as a Lance Corporal?
Yeah. I was.
Holy shit!
I was really into McMap. I was really into just. To be honest,
Marine Corps.
I played football and I fought before, and then ended up playing a lot of rugby when I couldn't play football in college. And when I joined the Marine Corps, there was a real absence of getting to hit people by the time I got to the fleet. We do lots of training with firearms. We did lots of training. I was on the ATFP team where we would do some cool knife technique stuff. But I was, I'm not a good long distance runner. I'm a bigger guy, but I can hit, and so I was looking for an opportunity to do that. And football gave it to me. And it took 2 seasons of that for me to talk Sergeant Major Galeko into letting me come out to Fight Club 29, which was at the time a recreational mixed martial arts team he had built. It eventually became the Marine Corps' first formal mixed martial arts team. And that was an education for me. When I made it onto that squad, I walked in as like the toughest guy in my group of friends, which is nothing compared to like guys who do this. And I realized quickly, even if you train, you could train me every day. You could give me hours of training a day. I could be in the best shape of my life. Some of these guys are just fighters. It's what they are. And I'm not one.
Yeah.
Are you saying you are, or are you asking a question?
No, I'm asking a question.
Yeah.
You wouldn't happen to have like run by Staff Sergeant Blackwell, did you?
That name is crazy familiar. I feel like I know that.
He was a black belt, 2 red stripes. He was our platoon commander for a little bit, but he said,
I think that I did.
He was huge.
He might have been a gunny Blackwell by that time.
Yeah. He's a good guy. I served with him for a little bit. But yeah, he was really big into that, the MCMAP program, which for you guys out there, it's Marine Corps Martial Arts Program.
And I know there's a lot of MCMAP hate out there, and a lot of it is fair.
No, I only made it to tan belt, so I didn't get to do the cool shit because I'm a machine gunner, and they're like, yeah, we don't care about MCMAP. We just want you to shoot the 240 or the Mark 19 or the 50 cal really well. I'm like, okay, fine, I'll do that.
And honestly, that's kind of the problem with MCMAP, is that MCMAP is really a system that was designed for every practitioner to be a black belt. It was really how it was designed, because a lot of the stuff that you learn in tan through green is fundamental movements and techniques that won't help you in a fight. They will help you execute more complex movements and techniques later. Yeah. But to be honest, there's a lot of problems with the MCMAP program. But some of the techniques are solid.
Because what I hear is after you get done with after gray belt, green belt, it actually is fun.
It is. It's a blast. I mean, if you like hitting each other, brown and black were exhausting, but probably some of the most fun that I had in the Marine Corps. You low crawling in a field. You start on either sides of a football field with a squad on a squad, and you have to low crawl to each other and submit the entire other squad. There's not a lot of things more exhausting than that. But
that sounds exhausting.
It is like one of the cooler ways to spend, your 04 to 06 on a Tuesday. But it was a great time. And by the time I started competing, that honestly saved me. I'm not the best technical fighter, but I had a hell of a gas tank. So I ended up being an undefeated semi-pro fighter, even though, to be honest, if you were to watch the tape, I got beat up a lot, but I would let guys get really tire themselves out by kicking the shit out of me in the first round. And then by the third round, they were exhausted and I was still scoring points. And
you'd really make them submit after that. That's a good, that's a very good tactic right there.
That's
I learned it from being a little brother, I suppose.
He's getting his ass kicked all day. That's not a good tactic.
Well, no, it's true. But actually, it's pretty good, because when you let them beat up on you, they're expending their energy, and you just use that and you take them down. Right. Sorry, I'm a first degree.
One of the biggest things I always teach is conservation of movement. Yep. When you're, especially in pancration or ground fighting, grappling.
Jiu-jitsu too, yeah,
absolutely. If the other person is doing something that's not really hurting you, but they are exerting a ton of energy to try to do it, let them do it, is kind of my approach. And let them tire themselves out, because it'll create opportunities.
Do you fight people other than Marines, or is it just strictly other?
I did. Marines? I don't anymore. I'm old and fat now. But I did for a short time. Fight Club 29, we started going, and right around the time that we became a formal group, a real Marine Corps supported organization, we got a little bit of funding, and then we started competing in civilian tournaments, mostly around Southern California, which was, again, a real educational experience for me. The same way Marine Corps football was. Marine Corps football is weird because you might be playing against a guy on this side who was a starter for Syracuse 2 weeks ago, and this guy over here who's never played a sport in his life but is just an athlete and made the team. And fighting in the Marine Corps was similar, where just people come with a lot of very different backgrounds, really different skill sets. And I think that I became a much better fighter as a result of training with Marines than I think I probably would have otherwise, just because the guys who made their way to Fight Club 29 all had a background in scholastic wrestling or jiu-jitsu or karate even. And my method when I was competing, honestly, similar to my method now as a researcher and an analyst, is I look for the things that work well for me. And I go, okay, I'll take that. The things that don't work as well for me, I just kind of set aside. Maybe I'll revisit it. Maybe it just goes on a shelf. And I try to make, just kind of a collection of the stuff that's effective for me. And I think the Marine Corps, the environment that I was in, Lord knows if it's still like that. We were just a bunch of guys in a hangar at the time, but it was one of the best experiences of my life.
Basically, bull in the ring.
Yeah, it was bull in the ring, which actually is how I blew out one of my knees.
You blew out your really bull in the ring?
Yeah,
dude, that shit's dangerous, man. We just get together and if you guys don't know what bull in the ring is, you just circle up and then bam, two people going at it, and that's it.
If you win, you stay in the ring.
That's right.
Until you lose.
Yep.
So if you're a guy like me who, I sometimes let my ego make decisions more. So submitting in training is not an embarrassing thing. It shouldn't be. You should submit 100 times a day in training. Yeah. But for some reason, I still always took it personally. Especially something like bull in the ring where there's people watching. You don't
want to submit. You don't want to look like a pussy.
Exactly. And
I'm sorry to say, but that's how us Marines think. You don't want to make yourself look bad in front of the other guys. You want to be the alpha male all the time. Which
my first tournament, I showed up. It didn't even occur to me. My first civilian tournament didn't even occur to me that losing could be embarrassing at the time, because I was so much in my head about my opponent and about making weight, because I walked around at like 215 and fought at 185. And so I was mostly just thinking about food, but it didn't occur to me at all that losing would be embarrassing until my wife was like, oh man, I just, if you lose, that's going to be really rough with all these people watching. Like 10 minutes before the fight. Thanks, babe.
Nice.
My whole shop was there. I had by that time I was a squad leader, and my squad was there. And my opponent was like a chunkier dude with painted nails. And immediately I went for a double leg, too sloppy, and he landed me in a choke. And there's a picture of me standing there holding him, standing up as he's choking me. And I came very close to going out and losing my first fight in 20 seconds to some guy with pink nail polish in front of all my Marines. It would have been the worst day of my life. Fortunately, I smashed him on the ground until he let go. And it went fine from there. But I almost got a real lesson in humility right off the bat.
Like a blood choke or like a triangle choke?
Yeah, it was a blood choke. It was a pretty well sunk front choke. Just caught me just head under the armpit, right in there. And
I didn't know you could do that in MMA.
Well, it was a pancration tournament.
Oh, okay.
The rules are a little bit different, like for instance, we weren't supposed to strike to the face intentionally. It's like one of those kind of weird rules. So as long as they rule that, basically, as long as everybody's keeping their tempers, the ref doesn't interfere all that much. Pancration's like a traditional Greek martial art, but it's ground fighting. I had a blast in that tournament, and then I had a blast with that team. But not long after that, I got orders sending me out to 25th Marines in Fort Devens, Massachusetts, I&I duty, which was a whole different bag of bananas. It was another great experience. I spent a long time as a funeral honors NCO, working 3-5 funerals a week for about 4 years. And it was a crash course in what service really is for me, and what service means to people who are on the tertiary. It's one thing to see service members and their immediate family who live with them, and you understand the challenges that they face when you live on base. You all kind of share them. When you're out in a civilian environment where there's only 50 Marines in the state, and you go to work these funerals where you're representing the Marine Corps to these people in a way that you might be their only direct contact with the service if their family member who passed is older, or if they passed away on active duty before the family had a chance to go visit them on base and things like that. And it contextualized what the Marine Corps was for me in a way that I think I still benefit from today. Because I remember going to Major Thibodeau, my CO, and saying I requested to be transferred to a Victor unit so I could deploy. And that's not what I'm doing here. I mean, we deployed to Africa and stuff like that, but I was like, I want to go do something that's very difficult and hard because that's what I thought that I was supposed to be doing. And while funeral detail was very difficult emotionally, it wasn't physically. And to me, it was supposed to be physically painful, right? And Major Thibodeau told me, he was like, that's why they call it service. They call it service because you do what your country asks you to do and what your country needs you to do, not what you want to do or what will make you feel.
It ain't Burger King, man. You don't get your choice.
Now,
Alex, your story, it actually sounds like a movie that we've probably all seen with what's
Kevin
his name?
Bacon.
Kevin Bacon, Taking Chance.
Taking Chance.
So I can tell you, so that movie came out right near the end of my Marine Corps tenure, and I haven't watched it because I had a hard time getting out. I was medically retired. I didn't take it great. So I hid from that movie, to be honest with you. I still haven't seen it.
You need to watch
it now.
Well, what you just said about service, he played an officer that didn't go anywhere, didn't do anything. I mean, but he asked to go and escort this body home of this little PFC, or I can't even remember if it was a Lance Corporal or whatnot. But yeah, that's service. I mean, if you can't get overseas, what you did is what the family needs. What those people need to see, that the spit and polish of a Marine Corps funeral, which we definitely need that here in Tennessee, because I have seen some honor guards that definitely need a little bit of work on their close order drill. I'll just tell you that.
That's rough.
Especially me, because I was terrible at drill.
We always talked a lot of shit. I'm sorry, talked a lot of smack about.
You can swear.
Say what you want.
We always did talk a lot of shit about, especially other services. Because we would see. There'd be an Army funeral at the same cemetery some weeks, it's but then you'd see some guys who were incredibly locked on, who understood the import of what we were doing. And I think that I don't blame people when you are a corporal, a reservist who's on ADOS orders or active duty orders, and you get pulled into a funeral detail, especially like over a 96 or something, which for those of us on I&I duty, that's kind of par for the course. But for some of those guys, it isn't. You get so hung up in the fact that I've got to be there 4 hours prior. We've got to do the rehearsal on Saturday night.
Yep.
I've got to make sure my blues look good. You get so hung up in your shit that you don't remember what it is that you're really doing until the family shows up. And then all of a sudden you realize, I remember now. I remember how important this is. I'm not worried about IPs now. I'm not worried about
IPs. I can't believe you just said IPs. Oh my God.
Man, when you're on funeral honors, you will find IP? No group of
IP. It's an Irish pennant. It's like one of those little it's that's right out of boot camp. Like
yes, Marines on funeral details groom each other like monkeys.
Alex, are you a Hollywood Marine or are you Paris Island?
Paris Island. Yeah.
Thank God. Okay. Thank God.
Still to this day, I mean, I was a best man for one of my Marines' wedding a few months ago, and all of us in our tuxes before the ceremony started are out in the back looking each other's suits over. It's ingrained in us at this point. You can't turn it off.
Alex, you come up and talk to our group. You should talk to us about the importance of a ritual team.
Yeah, I would love to. Honestly,
start a ritual team here in Middle Tennessee.
That's really cool. Because honestly, it isn't about the service member as much as we all think about. We all think it is when we're the service member, but it's about their family, and it's about the legacy of the service branch and of service itself, which is, I'm prone to idealism, but it's also there's humor to be found in that too. Like, people don't realize how funny funeral details can be sometimes, just because sometimes the person who passed led a long and full life, and it's just your 3 Marines or 11 Marines there to honor the portion of their life that they gave to their country. But sometimes, the families are hammered and they're passing around booze. Sometimes it's a party instead of a really somber occasion, or sometimes your bugler will pass out in the middle of playing taps. And it isn't funny at the time, but it is very funny that night.
No, I agree, Alex. I agree. I'm the state chaplain for the VFW, and I've been to a lot of funerals. And
you're probably one of the few who's been to more than me. Then,
sometimes they're joking around. Sometimes they're real serious. But it's for the family, and we're there for the families. And you did like the spit and polish stuff. I just show up with like my cover and say a couple prayers But I would have loved.
It's incredibly important, though. Especially what chaplains do.
It is very important, because you give solace to the family. And
I was a sergeant, so I can't overstate the value of the chaplain. My job was to look good in uniform and present a flag and deliver a few, poignant lines that I had rehearsed, and to interact with the family over the phone to organize things. But the chaplain, in particular,
it's a very important job.
The emotional burden of the loss.
We do. I have. And Fleek, what is up with this uniform, man? What's going on here?
So,
are you showing off like this is what you used to look like when?
So when I was going up through the ranks of the VFW and the American Legion and the Dearborn Allied War Veterans Council back home, I was a member of a ritual team, and I've performed plenty of funeral details. And I found this is a photo of myself with the Secretary of the Navy at a wreath laying. So when you start talking ritual team, I just wanted to show my little uniform. And that, I used to do it too. I buried a bunch of veterans.
Honestly, I
period.
From one guy who's done it to another, to both of you, just thank you for it. My father passed away a few years ago. My dad was not a fan of the Army after he got out. He was a fan of vets, but didn't speak well of his time in Vietnam. And before he passed, he was going through a bunch of stuff, so he wasn't really all there. But an Army chaplain came to the hospital to speak to him. And, my dad didn't know who I was. But when the Army chaplain came in, my dad went to the position of attention in bed and called him sir, thanked him for the certificate that he brought him. I don't know. It's being in the military. I think it's fairly easy to look at a guy like me, for instance. I was in for 6 years. I have been out for longer than I was in. But the Marine Corps still plays a very active role in my life. And for some people, that might seem strange, but
it's terribly strange, man. I've been out since 2008, and I still wake up. I'm like, man, I got to get up. I got to, reveille, all that kind of stuff. And it's still, and Fleek, he's been out of the Navy since 1955, and he still
not quite, but not far off.
He still shows us all these pictures of like the Carl Vinson, and I'm like, dude, he is so moto about that ship. It's crazy.
I'm more moto now than I was when I was in a lot of ways.
They call me a motard all the time, and you can't even say motard anymore. It is on PC in the Marine Corps. You cannot say motard.
It's true. Honestly, you're not even supposed to say call people warrior anymore. When I was getting out there,
say warrior.
You're like, because we used to use warrior, like, hey warrior, come here.
Hey warrior, hey.
But because we always used it when we were correcting someone, they told us to stop.
Hey, double dog. Hey.
But I don't know. I did definitely have some bad experiences in the Marine Corps, but
hell yeah.
I think that's part of why it was so meaningful. And then since the Marine Corps, everything about the life that I lead today, I can really credit to my time in. I always wanted to be a writer ever since I was a kid. But Right, but writing isn't really a career field. You know,
Marshall.
I remember my
a
teachers-
writer. Oh, wait. Did you say writer or raider?
Writer.
A writer, yeah.
Oh, I thought you wanted to be a Marine Corps raider. I was like, damn,
a writer,
dude.
yeah. Well,
Yes.
I wasn't ever hard enough for that. But I always wanted to write.
Writer.
And, I remember distinctly my teachers telling me writing isn't a career path; it's a hobby that you do aside from your job. You know. And then when I was in the Marine Corps, you know, while I was in Africa, I did a little bit of writing for like PAO, you know, put up on
Affairs,
and stuff like that. But I didn't do a bunch of it. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, kind of not intentionally, you know, I got medically retired. I still didn't know what the hell I was going to be when I grew up because the plan was to be a Marine. So I went to Framingham State University for undergrad,
Nice.
honestly, just to use the GI Bill to pay me for something while I figured out, you know. And I had a professor named Professor Sam Witt, who I should reach out to him, but he was an expository writing professor. And I've always been a pretty strong writer, and he kind of realized that at the beginning of the class and was like, you know, it seems like you really enjoy doing this. Have you thought about pursuing it? And I was like, you can't pursue writing. Like, you know, what am I going to do? And I kind of still, even though he planted that seed in my head, I still had this idea that you can't make a living writing. You have to find something else. So I ended up, right after I graduated in 2.5 years, summa cum laude. I did really well at Framingham. They have a great vets program there. It also helps being 30 and not trying to be cool and being married. So I didn't have to worry about meeting anyone or going on dates. Made it a lot easier.
You're young, dude.
And so when I finished school, I got a job for a defense contractor working in HR, which was not the fit for me. I lasted 6 months there. During that same period of time, my mother-in-law passed away pretty abruptly.
Sorry.
Thank you. But it ended up being an important lesson for my wife and I. We realized my mother-in-law was only 54 when she passed. And we realized you can not like your job or your circumstances and then still just die without that being resolved. Not everybody gets like a beginning, middle, and end to their story. We don't all get a conclusion. And I don't know why it took until then for me to realize it, but I'm really lucky my wife was kind of in the same page too. So I said, I want to take a crack at writing. I was going to grad school to get an MBA at the time because I thought it would be good professionally. I was like, I want to change majors back to communications. I want to take a crack at writing. We can't do that in Boston where it's super expensive to live. So I was thinking we would move to Georgia where my wife has never been. But I was like, I know I can get a job consulting for a race team. So I know I've got a paycheck when we get there. Housing's way cheaper. And my wife said, sure, let's do it. So we literally threw everything we owned into a big dumpster, put the stuff that we could fit into 2 cars in and drove down to Georgia and rented a tiny little house for next to no money. And I proceeded to fail miserably at writing for about 2 years.
Where in Georgia?
Had my car Cumming, Georgia. Well, first Dawsonville and then Cumming later.
Yep.
Had my car repossessed. While I was still kind of going through grad school and I was writing uncredited stuff like marketing copy and copy work and stuff. And finally I realized, at what point is it unfair of me to expect my wife, who was nannying at the time, to keep supporting me while I chase this dream? It's irresponsible, So I borrowed her car and I went to Kroger, the grocery store, to apply for a job bagging groceries, which they would not give me because I had a master's degree. They told me that maybe I'd be better suited for a management role, but they don't think that I would last very long in this job. And I was like, this is Dawsonville, Georgia. It's this or there aren't other jobs. I'm going to keep this job if you'll give it to me. But they wouldn't have it. And so I went out to the car and I had like a real rock bottom moment. And I'm super fortunate while I was there, lamenting my situation. I got a phone call from a defense outlet who had read some of the stuff in my portfolio and were willing to let me give them some pitches. And that was my first decent writing job. And I'm super lucky that I have had steady and increasingly better work ever since. And to the point where a few years ago, I was the defense tech editor for one outlet and running a few other ones, and then Popular Mechanics picked up some of my work. And that really helped me kind of grow my exposure quite a bit. After writing for PopMech for a few years, Sam Meek, who's one of the founders of Sandboxx, reached out to me. And Sandboxx is a company that specializes in getting mail to service members in training and overseas.
I have that app. I've been looking at that app. It's really cool.
Yeah, they kind of stepped in when Moto Mail went under.
Oh my God, Moto Mail.
Right?
Oh my, that's like a blast from the past. Holy shit.
It was Sam Meek, who was a Marine sergeant, and General Ray Smith, who was like a Vietnam hero Marine as well. And they brought in Shane McCarthy, who's an Irish dude, who's just a marketing whiz, and a guy named Swami, who is an IT whiz. And they put together this app. And those 4 guys, for the first year or so, basically ran the business themselves. They printed the letters. Sometimes when they couldn't get them shipped on time, Sam and Swami would hop on a plane and fly the letters to Paris Island overnight. They started with just Paris Island. And so by the time Sam reached out to me, Sandboxx had grown a lot, but it was still only 20 people, you know? And but they had stood up a blog that was basically just a marketing content blog. Here's why you should write letters to your loved ones at training. Here's how we get the letters to them, you know, and but the blog had kind of gotten some traction, and Sam said, I think that we could really make this into a news outlet that could benefit service members and benefit their families who don't understand what the military is maybe, but they just had a loved one join. And at the time I was looking for a new job, and I was talking to the guys at We Are the Mighty, and I was talking to the guys at the War Zone, and which are both the War Zone does incredible work. We Are the Mighty's an OG player, you know. But Sam gave me the chance to build something new, and to put together a team of guys that I felt like weren't necessarily the voices that we were already consistently hearing, but had really important stuff to say. And so now at Sandboxx, you know, I tend to be the face of it, but we've got Hazard Lee, he's an F-35 pilot. We've got George Hand, who was Delta for 17 years. We've got great stuff from a guy named Steve Ballastieri, who is a Green Beret warrant officer. We've got a lot of incredible guys with incredible stories and insight into what's going on today, but they're not necessarily the people that you'd read on CNN or Newsweek. They're not always necessarily even the strongest writers, although those guys all are. Sometimes they're just people with great stories, and we've got editors that can help them kind of put those stories together. But then about a year and a half ago, we jumped into video, which has turned out to be really good for us. Our Sandboxx YouTube channel, it's literally just me talking about airplanes, but we're about 120,000 subscribers now, and I just got on TikTok about a month ago, and about 25,000 followers on there. I don't know why people like to hear me talk about planes, but I am grateful for it. I am, you know.
Have you talked to Gunny Wolf? Have you ever heard of Gunny Wolf, like Semper Tunes and Core
I
Tunes?
definitely, yeah.
Well,
I don't know him, but I'm certainly familiar with Semper Tunes.
Well, Gunny Wolf is a member of our VFW, and he is a great guy. We actually interviewed him.
Yeah, he's been on the show.
God, like what, 15 episodes ago?
Something like that.
He's got some great cartoons. He actually just had a good one on Sunday for Core Tunes and Quantico, and they've got a newsletter and everything like that. We should definitely get you in touch with Gunny Wolf.
I'd love to meet him. A friend of mine who's a master sergeant in the Marine Corps, when he retired, he ended up a cartoonist for Nickelodeon, of all things.
Damn.
Yeah, how crazy is that? For the Fairly Odd Parents, he drew for a while, and a couple other Nickelodeon shows. I love that. I am incapable of anything aesthetic. I'm really good when it comes to writing 3,000 words on a deadline, but if you want me to make anything look good, I am the last guy. So I used to call Jeff Sornig, he was the master sergeant who's a cartoonist now, all the time, just to ask him if the pictures I was using were okay. You know, so like, but
hey, Alex, it's okay, man. I draw stick figures, and they still look terrible.
Yeah. You know?
My wife does a better job at stick figures than I do.
I'm starting to learn the ropes in Photoshop a bit, just because, I mean, when it comes to news publishing, whether it's Unpopular Mechanics or Sandboxx or Business Insider or any of these places, the reach matters. But at the end of the day, what gets people to click is a headline and a feature photo.
Yeah.
But you have to, now that I'm an editor in chief and I've got a bunch of guys working for me, I have to put a bunch of words around it. But basically, you just have to keep the promise that you make in the headline. Otherwise, it's clickbait. But you also need to draw attention to something that is important, but the reader may not necessarily appreciate the importance or recognize the importance. So you have to find this balance between engaging them in a way that might draw them to click without making a promise that you're not going to keep. And I'm trying to experiment with creating images as opposed to just looking for good images that can help with that. But it's a work in progress.
So why isn't the A-10 good for Ukraine?
Well, the simplest answer is really just that the A-10 really isn't designed to operate in a modern contested environment. It's got a very big radar cross-section. Its top speed's about 420 miles per hour. It is a very effective close air support platform. But in Iraq and Afghanistan, where the A-10 just kicks ass, and don't get me wrong.
Oh, yes, it did. Oh, yes, it did.
This is what the A-10 fires 65 of per second. 65 depleted uranium rounds a second. It's like a laser beam. Incredible. However, the problem we run into, Russian surface-to-air missiles and air defense systems have this reputation for being incredible. They're not. They have very real vulnerabilities and limitations. Some of them, they're still very capable systems. A lot of people just overestimate the efficacy of air defense systems at large. But the A-10 in particular is just kind of a slow-moving platform that would not only be easy prey for an S-300 or an S-400, but also for Russian aircraft. The airspace over Ukraine is very much contested. A platform like the F-16 would just be way more survivable even in close air support operations, just because it would be flying higher than man pads would reach. And the A-10 would get eaten up pretty bad by things like Russia's got the 9K-333 man pad system. It's a fairly advanced one. It came out in 2016. And it would really make operating A-10s almost anywhere near Russian troops extremely difficult. I'm not saying you couldn't do it, but for pilots with limited training on the platform, back in 1979, the Naval Graduate School did a study on the efficacy of these rounds against Russian armor on T-62 tanks. And what they found basically was that as incredible as the GAU-8 is, and it is, it couldn't penetrate the T-62's armor from a frontal assault, which was 100 millimeter rolled steel. The T-72 3Bs Russia operates now mostly are 200 millimeters layered steel. It's a different makeup of materials. It's a much stronger material, and it's twice as thick. You could still do a great deal of damage to a Russian tank by engaging the suspension or the armor in the weaker areas. It's like 80 millimeter rolled steel and most of the sides and back. But this means you, as an A-10 pilot, would need to know, you need active intelligence to know where the tank positions are so that you're not coming at them straight up where your primary weapon system isn't going to be all that effective. You also need to be able to fly at altitudes as low as 200 feet or lower in order to really engage them effectively if you're trying to hit them in the suspension. And you need to engage from distances no greater than 4,000 feet and preferably not closer than around 1,500. We're talking about trying to fight within a football field with an aircraft. And especially if there are air defense systems around, the S-400 is fairly rare, but it's got a 250-mile radius where it can feasibly engage targets. It would really be dangerous for an aircraft like the A-10. It'll be dangerous for an aircraft like the F-16, but it'd be much more survivable for an F-16.
So,
damn, man, you got your stats on point right now.
Yeah.
I fell into aviation, and I love it. I have a passion for there's heroism in the ingenuity, I think,
So is Russia really this bad at war, or is this the media?
Oh boy! Now we're broaching the subject right now.
So this is
thank you, Commander. I gotta go turn my light on because it's getting kind of dark in here.
It's a complicated.
I'm gonna get scared when you talk about Russia.
Yeah.
The answer is both, to be honest. So the first big issue that Russia's running into is literally their military doctrine itself is failing in Ukraine. Even if you had really well-trained troops and really well-maintained equipment, their approach to this war had a big flaw, and primarily because Russia's military doctrine is predicated on the idea of a fight with NATO. So because of that, back in the 70s, when they sort of rewrote the manual for how Russia would fight, they placed a huge focus on artillery and precision fires and kind of treated their Air Force as secondary to that. They used their aircraft effectively for intelligence gathering for their kill chain, sure, but basically just as an extension of artillery. So for instance, air supremacy isn't a part of Russian military doctrine. For a long time, people kept asking, why hasn't Russia established air superiority over Ukraine? It's because their military doctrine doesn't call for it, so they don't even have dedicated suppression of enemy air defense aircraft like our Wild Weasels. They do have radar-seeking missiles, microwave missiles, like our HARMs, our AGM-88s, but they can fly them on a variety of aircraft, and their pilots aren't trained in their use very frequently. So whereas we have guys who fly Wild Weasel missions, and they rep this, and they know what they're doing, it is still a very dangerous job. We use F-16s for it now. We used to use F-4s. In the Russian Air Force, you might be flying a close air support mission one day, and then they want you to be a Wild Weasel on Tuesday, and then they want you to do something else on Wednesday. So Russia's lack of needing air supremacy has really limited their ability to operate freely. As we've seen, Ukrainian drones have caused a lot of problems for Russia. But a lot of their other problems, a lot of their logistical issues, a lot of their chain of command issues could be resolved with air dominance. If you could operate AWACS, if you could have more platforms in the air for logistics, it would make things significantly easier for Russia. But because their military doctrine is based on the idea that NATO's air forces would be overwhelming to theirs, so there's no reason to try to get air dominance. You won't get it. Let's fight without it. They walked into a losing set of circumstances. But they also have just really deep-seated problems. Russia's entire military budget floats between $60 and $65 billion a year. That's about on par with Britain, but their military is significantly larger than England's. And as a result, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I got to stop, man. Have you ever considered working for the RAND Corporation?
Honestly,
because I've got a buddy who actually he went to UVM, the Catamounts, and I can't give you his name, but he works for the RAND Corporation, and you sound just like him. I mean, like he would rattle off numbers.
I read a lot of their reports. I mean, that means I honestly do have my work cited a lot in studies and assessments, which is for a guy like me, for a nerd like me, like the greatest joy. When I get like a notification that my name popped up in a book from the Oxford Press, because I'm just a nerd from Vermont.
Nerd.
You know, so
but you're good. You're good at what you do.
Yeah, very, very much. But the other real thing that's hurting Russia is they have placed a huge emphasis over the past few decades on presenting this image of being a defense technology leader to benefit their foreign weapons sales efforts. And because of that, they funnel a ton of money into high-profile programs that have no strategic benefit. The Su-57 Felon, Russia's stealth fighter, is a great example of that. They've funneled tons of money into it. And if you, in aviation circles, a lot of times, you'll see it mentioned right alongside the F-35 and the F-22 and the J-20. The truth is, Russia's Su-57 stealth fighter has a radar cross-section about the same size as a Super Hornet. But even if it didn't, they've only got 6 production Su-57s in the whole country. They have 12 hand-built prototypes and 6 production ones. They would have had 7, but the first one crashed right after it took off. So they've funneled all this money into developing this stealth platform that they only have a token fleet of. They did the same thing with the T-14 Armada main battle tank. We've seen them do it with hypersonic weapons. I could go on for days about how Kinzhal isn't a real hypersonic weapon, but Avangard is. their nuclear-powered Skyfall missile, another failed enterprise that they devoted tons of money to because they want people to see them as a technological peer with China and the United States, so that the nations on America's naughty list that can't buy the F-35 might want to buy the Su-57 or the Checkmate. The nations that can't buy the Patriot missile system really might be down to pick up an S-300. And Russia, because they were so focused on maintaining that reputation, they funneled a lot of money away from maintaining their conventional forces. We've seen it with their surface fleet. Their one aircraft carrier just doesn't work anymore. I mean, it burned down and it sunk their dry dock a few years ago. But even prior to that, it didn't work well. Most of their surface fleet is fairly derelict. Their submarine fleet, on the other hand, is very effective. So basically, Russia is trying to maintain a massive military while getting these big sticker price programs out there to get some sales. And as a result, they have to make really hard decisions about what they'll actually fund. And I think we've seen that in real time. I published a story the day before they invaded Ukraine called How Russia Uses the Media to Present This False Image of Military Might. And then they invaded Ukraine and I went, shit, they're going to make me look like an asshole. And instead they made me look like a genius. I wasn't as right as I now seem, I think, in hindsight.
They're doing a lot of dick stuff over there, like raping and pillaging, man. Like there's some bad people going through Ukraine.
Honestly, it's not just culture. It seems at this point to be almost systemic, as though, because you can blame culture when it's something that isn't punished, but it becomes systemic when it's not only not punished, it's encouraged. I don't know that there's formal policy encouraging it, but it certainly seems as though the idea is to break the Ukrainian will.
Right. Yeah.
So if you can make this bad enough, they won't want to keep resisting, Yeah.
Yeah. They're just like sending rockets into like schools, like just they're like the worst of the worst.
Some of that is it's not Hanlon's razor. Some of that is Hanlon's razor. Don't fault them being evil when we can just blame it on them being stupid. They have a very limited supply of precision munitions, and they're really expensive, especially with all these sanctions in place. It's more and more difficult to produce them. So we're seeing increasingly them using the wrong types of missile systems for their circumstances. So sometimes they really are targeting malls. Other times they're launching anti-ship missiles at land targets with a 48-hour delayed kill chain. So they're hitting a school because this missile wasn't designed for what you're using it for. You barely even know what you're shooting it at.
So they're reaching.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also is important to note that within the Russian leadership structure, bad news is punished. So I mean, we all know that guy who, like, even though things weren't going well, his fit rep still looked good. That is like a systemic methodology for the Russian military.
So if Biden doesn't win the presidency and it's Trump, do you think Russia still invades Ukraine?
That's tough. I think yes. And the reason why is because a lot of what Putin has done is all kind of based around a book that came out in 1996 by a guy named Alexander Dugin. He's still alive today. He's kind of seen as like a Russian political guru. And he wrote a book called The Foundations of Geopolitics, which the idea was to bring the Russian Federation back to the Soviet Union's level of international prestige and prowess. And, Putin and Dugin know each other well. Dugin is one of the few people who's been openly critical of Putin at times without, getting poisoned, because he's just got a lot of clout, and because Putin recognizes the efficacy of his strategy. And that called for, in Russia, they use a methodology called reflexive control for things like media manipulation and propaganda. That's all laid out in Foundations of Geopolitics. Trying to get Britain to leave the EU is one of the things, the checkpoints that he lists in the book. And then taking Ukraine because it's an essential buffer between Russia and NATO, but also because off the coast of Crimea, there's enough natural gas there for effectively Ukraine to replace Russia as the primary supplier of natural gas to Europe. So there's a huge strategic value off of Crimea's coast. So Dugin basically argued that you've got to take Ukraine, otherwise Russia's economy will be in tough place and NATO will be right on our border. And we've seen, Putin do exactly that. I think that it would have gone down differently. The timetables might have been different, things like that. But I think we still would have seen it happen.
Dude, I feel like I'm watching an episode of Madam Secretary, and you are the Secretary of the State. I'm like, dude, seriously.
I'm the guy who used to just eat crayons at press events.
The next episode that I'm watching is all about Russia right now, and like Tia Leone, and I mean, Jay, you remind me of Jay. Her right hand.
No, I should check it out. I'll have to check it out.
You haven't watched Madam's? Oh my God, you are talking about the geopolitical front, like they're trying to they try to fix all these problems, and war is about to break out. Well, hey, we got to talk to this ambassador. We'll give you this if you give us this, like the prisoner exchange.
Yeah, honestly, sounds right up my alley. I would.
Dude, it is so up your alley. Like my wife and I we watched it already. We're watching it again because all that stuff. Like I'm kind of interested in the geopolitical of the world, and because I was a classics major in college, and a lot of this stuff as we learn, Socrates and Aristotle and the Caesars and Augustus and Tiberius and Claudius and Caligula and all these guys that they messed up, but they did some really, really good stuff in trying to rule the world, and they did. Some stuff they did a good job at. Some did.
Honestly, that's such an important point too. Like the broader context, we tend to make prominent figures in the modern day, but let alone historically, we make them monoliths where they're just one thing.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm a big fan of Hardcore History. It's a podcast, and I love the idea that like it's all context. I feel that way about our current life. We tend to dismiss things like pop culture because we don't. It's stuff we throw away. It's just, the thing I veg out and watch. Yeah. But the truth is pop culture is how you see the world beyond your window, right? So the Kardashians might be stupid to me.
They are. They are totally stupid.
Absolutely.
They are totally dumb.
But 100 years from now, when you're studying the conflicts of our day, that part of the pop culture world that we existed in informs the way that we live our lives within these challenges. It's all context.
Who's the one that said you got to study the past so you don't repeat history?
I don't know.
It's a French philosopher. Damn, I can't remember his name, but like you have to study the past so you don't.
And it's painfully true. Doesn't it seem sometimes like we are intentionally trying to relearn some of the lessons we learned in the 20th century? I feel as though we're far enough removed, for instance, from how terrible an atomic weapon really is in use, that you see a lot of people talking very flippantly about why don't we just go in there and take Putin out? Why doesn't NATO just go into Ukraine right now? Why don't we just make this a world war? And I think people have lost sight of how awful. I mean, when you're outside of war, I think people lose sight of how awful war is in general, right? But especially nuclear war, or especially global war. When people talk about how, there's always that argument, if the U.S. really needed to drop atomic bombs on Japan. My argument is very much, yeah, they did. Because when the U.S. Navy was trying to pull ships in to captured islands, they weren't able to because of all the Japanese people who had committed suicide and whose bodies were floating in the water. This wasn't a people that was ready to just kind of pack it in.
Right.
But people also forget that in the United States, we're talking about a traumatized population who's been watching the world tear itself apart for years, who's had the male populations of entire communities wiped out. If they hadn't used the atomic bomb on Japan, and then 6 months later, the war is still going on, but it's going okay, what do you tell the parents of all those soldiers lost during those 6 months? Exactly. That we could have ended this war, but we chose not to for ethical reasons. Even though we were already firebombing Japan, even though we were already doing all sorts of stuff that now we see as ethically, pretty murky. But at the time, This was how the war was going. People were, it was a wood chipper, and now we try to look back and judge the decisions of the people of that era in a vacuum, but they weren't in a vacuum. They were losing people every day,
Just like Iraq, just like Afghanistan. I mean, it's the same thing.
I'm personally thankful that they dropped a bomb because my grandfather was shot in Europe 1 week before Hitler went down. So while he was in the hospital healing, his unit, Old Hickory 3rd Division, was on stand down because even though their war was over, they were in a holding pattern because they were about to get shipped over to Japan, not knowing that there was about 2 mother of all bombs about to drop on them. So for me, I'm thankful because it saved my grandfather's life.
Likewise, my grandfather was in the Pacific. And I actually didn't know he was a Marine until I was. I didn't get to know him.
But on EWO?
To be honest, I don't know much at all. I know he was a corporal. That's all I know. He passed away before I was born.
That's what I got out as, and I'm sorry about him.
Yeah, honestly, my family. I didn't realize a lot of members of my family had served until I did. Just because my father, again, he did 2 tours in Vietnam, and he didn't have good experiences. And just kind of part of that, as a result of that, we just didn't talk about it. We did lots of veteran things as a family. We talked about veterans, but we we talked about service or the military. And I think maybe in part, for all my dad's flaws, I think maybe he knew that I'm prone to idealism, and I do have like lofty aspirations, and I'm the type of guy who does walk into a recruiter's office and says, "Yeah, I don't care what job, send me on Sunday."
Right.
And I think my dad probably saw that in me, so he tried to steer me away from it. But to me, I understand that there's plenty of bad that surrounds the military, like any group, and inherently what the military does is fight wars, which means killing people. But in my mind, that's not really the military's primary role. The military's primary role is deterring the next big conflict. And that's kind of what that means to do.
Except if you're in the O3 field, because
that's fair.
I know the green monster says to close with and destroy.
But that's why I'm so glad we have those guys, because that is a dog we have on a chain.
You're welcome. You're welcome for my service.
Exactly. The whole people ask me this a lot because I work a lot with the guys at Lockheed Martin or at Raytheon or Northrop on stories. And then when I'll put the video up or the article up on Sandboxx, and one of the first things people always ask is, why are you telling our secrets to the bad guys? Why are we talking about the B-21 Raider or the NGAD program? And I always tell them that the idea is really that a secret weapon only works when we're already at war. So don't worry, there are secret weapons. $80 billion a year goes into classified lines of accounting. We've got some secret weapons. To be honest with you, I'm fairly confident that we either have or are really far along on a hypersonic drone. They call it Mayhem. Lockheed Martin, I believe, is leading the front on this program.
Alex, I hope you're going to be okay saying this stuff, on our podcast.
This is totally cool.
I don't want the Navy to come and knock on your door and be like, you need to shut up now, or we'll.
Believe it or not, of all things, this is going to make me sound way cooler than I am. I actually got to talk to Jerry Bruckheimer about it because of Dark Star and Top Gun.
That is so cool.
Again, a nerd in my basement, but for some reason, Top Gun heard about me and flew me out to San Diego.
Get the hell out of here.
Shut up.
So you can see it on YouTube, my interview with Jerry Bruckheimer, where he talks about China reorienting their satellites to try to get a look at their Dark Star mock-up.
Oh my God, I saw that.
Skunkworks.
I
was actually the guy who broke that story.
You did. You called that. Yeah, you called that.
You
called that.
But to put a little bit of tinfoil on, part of the reason why I think China reoriented that satellite is so for a long time, from like the 90s until about 2006, Lockheed Martin was pretty open about development on the SR-72, is what they called it. The idea was to use the son of Blackbird is what they called it. Son of Blackbird,
yeah.
It's a follow-up to the SR-71, and the SR-71, of course, and the fastest production aircraft still to this day. It's on record. Top speed was Mach 3.5, but based on what I've heard from people who have flown it, it could actually fly quite a bit faster. Kelly Johnson was the engineer who designed it. He designed the U-2, played a part in the F-117, the F-104 Starfighter. He's like the granddaddy of modern military aviation.
I want to see Smurf eject from that.
Yeah. Well, hey, spoilers, but Maverick somehow does in the movie and doesn't die.
Yeah, he just dusted himself out. He was okay. Can I get a cup of coffee or some water or something?
Right.
I mean, come
It
on.
turned him into oatmeal. Like Mach 10.
And Mach 10?
Yeah, like and instead he was like, I guess I'll go fly a fighter jet next week.
So
That's
the
a good point. I
fastest,
should have brought that up to Smurf, man. Like, what the hell?
so the fastest is what? It's not Mach 9. It's not Mach 10. What's the fastest?
So the fastest military aircraft in history was Mach 3.5 is officially. I know one guy who will tell you it's at least Mach 3.7. They could get the SR-72 up to maybe even faster. It used J-85 engines, which were unique. They were jet engines, but also worked like a ramjet. And a ramjet is an air-breathing jet engine, but basically it lets the air flow through, and it uses the speed of the air flowing into it for compression instead of a spinning fan. So scramjets are what they're working on now for hypersonic applications, which is
just like in the Marvel universe, they're using scramjets.
They are, absolutely. Scramjets have been around for a minute.
I didn't even know about it. When I saw Captain Marvel, I was like, "What the hell is a scramjet?" And so I've been doing a lot of
thing, right?
Yeah, it's a real thing.
Ramjet, but it allows supersonic airflow to pass through it, so it can sustain higher speeds. And the U.S. Led the world in hypersonic and scramjet technology for a long time, but then we fell off with the global war on terror. But these scramjet applications, we have publicly disclosed tests of a Northrop and a Lockheed scramjet within the past year, both functioning. Mm-hmm. But about 10 years ago, Lockheed kept talking about...
Hey, Brenda! Hey, where'd you go?
But Lockheed Martin kept talking about making an airplane using scramjets. And then all of a sudden, in 2017, Vladimir Putin went on TV and said that they were putting a hypersonic missile into service with the Kinzhal. And the whole world freaked out for a minute. That same weekend, if you go back and look at the Internet Archive and like the Wayback Machine or something like that, Lockheed Martin scrubbed any mention of scramjets, hypersonics, the SR-72, all of those programs from their website that weekend. Which leads me to believe that what happened was they were developing this program with their own money. It was kind of a franchise program because this was a Mach 5 aircraft is what they called it. And then I have a feeling that when Putin went on and made a hypersonic stink on TV, the DOD called Lockheed Martin up and they said, hey, you got a hypersonic thing, don't you? We'll give you a bunch of classified funding, but you got to get quiet about it. And then that was 2017. In 2019, the Air Force Research Laboratory announced their Mayhem program, which is a deep reconnaissance and strike scramjet-powered hypersonic platform, a drone. It sounds to me like they're pretty far along in development. They may even be able to field this platform in the next few years.
What kind of fuel do these things use?
So it really, it's crazy. This is where it gets super complicated, is that it depends on the application, not just with scramjets, but with a lot of these advanced engine systems. Rotation detonation engines is another one. So to be honest, it could be a number of different kinds of fuel. And it depends on how fast the aircraft's going to go, the altitude it's going to fly at. Because the biggest problem at hypersonic speeds, at Mach 5 plus speeds, is heat. We're talking about 2,000 plus degrees over the entire airframe, which is the reason why part of the problem is just making something that won't break apart under those temperatures, but also control surfaces that'll work and stuff like that. So there's a bunch of chemically complex compounds that you can use as a fuel that will stay stable at those temperatures and at those speeds. I couldn't name the list of what the chemicals are for you, but we did a lot of this science with Lockheed Martin back in the SR-71 days, because the SR-71 originally was going to be a number of aircraft, including the YF-12, which was an interceptor, a fighter. We crammed 3 AIM-47Bs into an SR-71 fuselage and did a bunch of tests with it at speeds We were doing better than Mach 3, launching the missile at Mach 5 speeds and engaging targets, drone targets in the 60s with it. So, but it was a real challenge. The SR-71 was a reinventing the wheel kind of a program. They one thing, if you ever see an SR-71 footage of one rolling down an airstrip, it is just dumping fuel like at a rate that would be concerning with any other aircraft. But it's because they flew so fast and got so hot that all the plates would expand. And so they had to create them so they weren't sealed on the ground. So they would create a seal at speed. So the SR-71 had to refuel immediately after takeoff. But then they would quickly jump up over Mach 3. And by then it was going so fast and burning so hot. People don't know this. Up at high altitude, the SR-71 was blue. Just because it was burning that hot, it changed the color of the material of the aircraft.
Whoa.
So it was an engineering marvel that they did without computers.
I feel like you should be wearing a bow tie.
Yeah, and a pocket protector too.
Maybe I'll incorporate one into the mix.
Revenge of the Nerds comes to mind.
Oh,
well, hey, Alex, we gotta get down to Chattanooga, man. I love the Nougat. Look at that shiny ass ball. Ha. What's up, gents? Okay.
You know what? I'm not going to laugh because every time I shaved my head, my forehead got bigger.
No, I think he was talking about me because I can't grow hair anymore.
I'm not going to laugh at you because I'm on that program. I'm on my way.
Well, dude, I started losing my hair after before my second deployment. Like I had to start shaving my head every day because I couldn't do a high and tight anymore because it just looked fucked up. And they're like, Andrew, you got to shave your head.
That's what I keep saying. I'm like, one more inch and I'm shaving it.
Yeah, that shit looks... Dude, I tried a horseshoe back in the day, and I just look like Wolverine. And they're like, no, fuck that shit. Shave that shit right now, Corporal Farr. Yeah, that looks terrible.
Yeah.
Hey, Andrew.
Sir.
When I first reached out to Alex and invited him on the show, and he's like, all right, but my story's not that interesting.
Are you kidding me?
I'm just like,
no, dude. We're at like an hour and 18 minutes right now, and I'm like, I'm on the edge of my seat right now. Like the plethora of knowledge. No, seriously, Alex. I think of myself as kind of a smart dude. I was a classics major. I have an MBA. And I'm like
a dumbass. No,
I feel like a fucking asshole.
The MBA, so I think you beat me.
No, dude, I haven't used my MBA in fucking since 2010, since I got it. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's what I would have done too. Honestly, I was afraid that if I got one, I'd have to use it.
I got it because my mom wanted me to get an MBA in healthcare administration. I was like, what the hell am I going to do with this? And I haven't done anything. Well,
you're doing this now, which is way cooler anyway.
No, hey, this is Fleek's idea, and I voluntold myself. I'm like, I'm going to help him out. This is cool because we get to meet all kinds of cool people. You and Wiz need to talk about all the shit that you just spoke to us about. You need to talk to him.
Honestly, I'd be happy to, and I'd be happy to come out to a VFW meeting or something.
No, you're coming August 18th, 1830. Be it what?
I was gonna say I might miss that one, so make it September.
September?
Yeah, I'll follow up with you guys. I'll get it figured out for sure. Yeah.
Wait. Why are you missing a meeting right now, Commander?
My daughter's having a baby shower.
Well, I gotta marry his different daughter, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm marrying the other daughter.
Yeah, my middle child, you're marrying.
Good to go.
He's not marrying her. He's marrying her.
I'm officiating. I've
officiated a couple weddings now too, just for drunk Marines who were like, "Hey, will you officiate? You talk a lot. Will you officiate?" I think what they told me. Yeah,
Alex, dude, I did my second wedding ever was at the camp, the Paris Island Second Recruit Chapel. That's where I did my second wedding ever.
That's rad. I love that.
And August 14th, I've got to do their 5-year ceremony.
That's
because
awesome, man.
and it's going to be in Ohio. That's August 14th, and then Fleek asked me for a wedding. Somebody else just asked me for a wedding in October.
That's awesome, man.
So my wedding, my wedding chaplain stuff is already picking up, and now being commander of this post, I've got to look the part, and I've got to do.
So now you're a commander.
You should call me. Yeah, You got to call me commander now. Hopefully, hey, wait, hold on. When you went to Africa, did you get some kind of a Guat-E type thing? OIR? What kind of ribbons, medals do you get?
I didn't get any ribbons at all for my time in Africa. I got nothing. I got family separation allowance, I guess. I think while I was there. It was it. It was Operation Shared Accord. I got I don't think I did get a ribbon or anything for it. I guess I'll go back to work.
Operation what? Wait, Operation what?
Accord.
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, it was in Mozambique. We basically just kind of stood security for a bunch of dentists and doctors and stuff like that. It was a cool experience for sure.
They didn't give you a ribbon for that, like Inherent Resolve or something.
I don't think so. It was near the end, so maybe one came through after I was out.
You need to check that because my recruiting brain is working right now, and I'm seeing how I can get you into the VFW.
Gotcha. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. Hey, Alex, let's talk about the malaria pill, man.
Man.
2 months of that. 2 months of that.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah. I gotta say, the whole time that you're taking it, you're like, I'd rather just get malaria. It's the worst.
What they give you? What they give you, Alex? Cipro or something like that?
Cipro and another one. I want to say it was one of the teens that ends with a teen, like Foxy walks as something a teen.
Yeah. Okay. What's up, Dr. House? I don't know what it is.
I honestly, I was very much, I was always the guy who was just like, I'd walk into medical and just like, give me the shots. I don't care. What do you want? Give me the pills. I don't care.
Did they give you anthrax shots? Like, cause you came in 2006.
I didn't get anthrax shots. I heard horror stories about them.
Yeah, they're horrible. I only got 3. And the first one, like I was on post in Iraq when I had my first shot. And I told my sergeant, I was like, Sergeant, I'm not feeling good. He's like, you're staying up here and you're fucking watching for 8 hours. I'm like, shit. And it's January in Iraq. It's cold as shit. And I feel horrible. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to be very efficient for you.
Did you shit your pants?
Yeah, I did. I actually, yeah, it's funny. I did shit my pants.
I'm not even going to judge. I know one of the guys on my team, he was a SEAL and then he went CIA. Now he's a firefighter. He's like the toughest guy in the world. But he ended up going through the anthrax rounds twice.
Nice.
Oh man.
What SEAL team was he with? Was he 3?
Oh, I should know this, but I don't. But his pen name is Frumentarius. That's what he writes under, and you can find him on Twitter on there as well. I'll find out which SEAL team he was on.
Well, we got a couple SEALs in our VFW, and they might know each other. Well, they probably all
know each other, right?
They all know each other.
Oh, yeah.
Especially Fru's dad was a SEAL, his uncle was a SEAL, and now one of his younger brothers is. So I feel they know everybody in the SEAL community.
Everybody,
But he's honestly he's a firefighter now. He's the captain of a fire station, and like talk about a dude who will make you feel unaccomplished. He was a SEAL officer, and then when he got out of the Navy, he went CIA and was a foreign service officer.
Nice.
And then like he came home and he's like, I'm ready to just like pack it in and relax. I'll just be the captain of a fire station in a major metropolitan area. Like incredible. I got to interview Johnny Kim. He's an astronaut now.
Yeah.
He was a Navy SEAL, a doctor, an astronaut.
Yeah.
And I think he was another thing too. It was one of the first interviews I did for Sandboxx. And when you talk to him, he's so matter of fact about it, like as though everybody could do that.
Yeah.
Like he's just like, yeah, I just, I would run 20 miles a day, and then I didn't eat or sleep. And then I would, go to med school at night. And then, I went to Harvard, and it was like, no, that's not what people do, man. It's not like, humans can't do that.
No, but they are they're very matter of fact, and they're very humble at the same time.
Honestly, the toughest dudes I've ever, George Hand is a perfect example. He was Delta Force for a long time. He just he had a book called Brothers in Cloth come out a little bit ago. I'd love to plug. This is George's. He's an incredible writer and an incredible man. He's just a genuinely really good man. But the stories he's got about Delta Force are crazy. But if you met George in a bar, he wouldn't tell you he was Delta, and he wouldn't act tough or try to intimidate you. If you tried to pick a fight with George, he would probably back down. George would murder you. You know, even now he's in his 60s, but he was working for the Deliver Fund and counter human trafficking for a long time. Like, I am confident that George would kick the shit out of me to this day.
Well, you see that all the time. Like, I got guys coming up to me all the time. Oh, I was a scout sniper. I'm like, really? You were recon? You were a scout sniper? Yeah, because they're not going to tell you they're that.
Usually the guys who are eager to tell you how badass they aren't very badass.
Aren't that badass. No, and I've seen it, and I'm just, shaking my head. Dude, actually, I do coldest nights here in Murfreesboro. When it gets below 32 degrees, I do fire watch for about 51 homeless guys. One of the guys
that's really cool.
He went to, this guy, I'm not going to tell you his name, but he's a schizophrenic, and he's hilarious. Because he's the youngest guy to get a confirmed kill in Vietnam at 16 years old. And I was like, okay, all right, whatever. And then he was like, well, I was SEAL Team 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I went to Harvard. I went to Yale. And I'm like, dude, why is this guy homeless if he's like, and I got 26 silver stars. I got 3 Purple Hearts. I'm like, really? Okay. Good on you, man. That's awesome.
Yeah,
way to go.
Meanwhile, you'll talk to a guy like George. I actually, when I first started working with him, I just thought he was like a nice guy that everyone really respected. But he was the reason why in the first newsroom that I worked in, I was a new guy with no bylines anywhere. And it was George who said, hey, this Alex Hollings kid's got some chops. He seems to be pretty good at this. And when George said that, that's when guys like Jack Murphy and some other editors were like, oh, we'll give Alex Hollings a chance. And I'll owe George for that forever.
It's word of mouth. It's the impression, man, that you make on these people.
And George, I just thought he was another dude until I went and toured a prison in Georgia that had bought and buy Titan Pictures to be like a training area for spec ops teams, but also they wanted to farm it out for filming and stuff like that because you could use live rounds in there and whatever. So I was touring it with a CIA guy and a CAG guy. And I was the one token journalist there. And as we were going through, I mentioned something that George sent something for my daughter. And they were like, wait, George Hand? And I was like, oh, yeah, he's like a super nice guy. I work with him. Do you guys know George? And they were like, oh, by reputation only. And that's all I heard about George Hand. But then I left and I was like, why would a CIA guy and a CAG guy be like, oh, we know George Hand by reputation? And I was like, okay, I'm going to start Googling him. If you Google him, there's pictures from the 80s of him training with the SAS and stuff, like looking like a total G.I. Joe guy. And I was like, wait a minute, this is like nice guy George? Like, the nicest dude I know? He's got pictures of him dropping a kayak from a little bird right outside of Soviet territory. He's a crazy dude. He's an awesome guy.
Hold on. Oh, my, yeah, he's kind of a badass.
Yeah, right?
Sorry, I'm looking his shit up right now, and I'm like, damn.
But he will probably tell you that you'd beat him up. You know what I mean? He's one of those guys. It's just the coolest guy in the world is what he is.
Holy shit. Sorry. Wow.
Right, though?
That's some crazy. Oh, my. Yeah, okay. Sorry. I only dealt with Delta once, and that was in 2005, and I only saw the shadows. And maybe someone smiling, and that was it. After that,
I never did.
I never saw them again. Like, they were with us, or not with us, but they were in our area. And like in 2006, SEAL Team 3 was with us, but we never saw them. They were just schwacking dudes, and they got our back. Like, we were doing this hospital. Like, we did this raid on this hospital, and SEAL Team 3, Task Force Bruiser, they were taking care of anybody that was like trying to creep up on us. And one of the guys, he's in our VFW, I'm not going to give you his name, but he is so humble. Like, he's got a Bronze Star with a V. And I'm like, I've known this guy we grew up in New Hampshire together. I didn't even know he had that. And he's very humble, and he'll go out and run 20 miles just like that. I'm like, that just is weird. I would never do that.
If I had anything even remotely as cool as a Bronze Star, it'd be how I'd introduce myself.
Right.
I'm like, hey guys, I have a really cool model of the Starship Enterprise. If you'd like to come check it out.
That'd be badass, dude. Or the Death Star. Like, I'm sorry, I'm a Star Wars guy. I'm not a Trekkie, but
I can appreciate. I'm a sci-fi guy, kind of in general.
Yeah, I kind of got that. I kind of got that notion that you were kind of into sci-fi.
Yeah, could you guess?
Yeah. Like I bet you love SG-1, like Stargate Atlantis 1 or whatever it is.
Oddly enough, I like it. I'm not as into it as I thought I would be.
I can't get past the first episode, man. I can't. I'm sorry.
I love all sci-fi, but Star Trek in particular, particularly TNG and DS9.
Well, we do have Lieutenant Uhura passed away today.
She did. Michelle Nichols did. Yeah.
And so did who was the basketball player for the Celtics?
Yeah.
He passed away too. I met him.
Yeah.
In Boston, because I went to boarding school in North Andover. I went to Brooks.
Oh, no way.
And
yeah.
I met him. And I asked for his autograph, and he's like, "Nope, I don't do autographs." I'm like, "Damn."
What?
Yeah, dude. He was like, "Nope, I don't do autographs, not at all." I'm like, "All right, good to go."
Okay.
We were at some Italian restaurant in the North End, and I saw him there, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's a Boston Celtic! Holy shit! And the girl I was with at the time, she's like, "Hey, go get his autograph." I went up there, and he's like, "Nope, don't do autographs. Sorry."
Nope.
But he was old school Celtics, man. I mean, he was old school. Bill Russell. Thank you, Bill Russell. Yeah. God rest his soul. I mean, he was a great basketball player, that guy. Damn.
Hey, Alex,
there was another actor too, but got drowned out by the others. You know?
Wait, there are 3 famous people that passed away today?
I think a third, the rule of threes, right?
It's the rule of 3.
Yeah.
There's gotta, like, and I'm trying, like, I was telling my wife that. I was like, there's going to be somebody else that passes away today. And I don't know who it is. But my prayers go out to those families. So we're not making jest of it. We're not making light of it. We're just very sad because they meant a lot to all of us.
Certainly not. Yeah.
Hey, Alex, are you a Patriots fan?
Yeah! Yes!
I have a football over here that was signed by a lot of members of the Patriots. The year Ocho Cinco was on the team.
Yes.
I did an event with the Pats when I was still on active duty. And Tom Brady was such a dick.
Don't tell me that, man. Tom Brady's awesome.
He was.
Eat it.
There's a reason why he's the only dude whose signature's not on that ball. He wanted nothing to do with us. But everybody else on the team was incredible. But I'm a Bills fan, which is difficult. I'm a glutton for punishment.
Are you kidding me?
Been a Bills fan my whole life. I was born in Oswego. It was a home team.
Bills are legit, man.
They won
this last year.
They won back in 2005. I remember a sergeant of mine wore that. Remember those leather jackets of like the team?
Hell yeah, I do.
Sergeant Knight had this horrible looking Bills jacket, all made of leather. I'm like, that's why you've been a sergeant for 10 years and they won't promote you.
That's why they can't win a playoff game. Although I do still have a box of Flutie Flakes around here somewhere.
And they did beat the Patriots. The Bills, they beat the Patriots, 10 years ago in the playoffs or some shit like that?
Yeah, something like that. Like every once in a while, for a long time there, the Bills would win 7 games a season. It was like clockwork. They might win 4 in a row at first, and then they'd stop for a while, or they might win none.
But Alex, you've got to. Drew Bledsoe was your guy.
Drew Bledsoe was my guy.
He was a great football player, man. I'm sorry. I loved that. Drew Bledsoe was awesome.
Doug Flutie too. After Bledsoe, I loved Doug Flutie.
Dude, he went to BC.
Yeah.
He went to BC. Doug Flutie is awesome.
BC. Yeah, but I haven't to be totally honest though. I'm not nearly as on top of football as I used to be. I was big into football and big into MMA until I was playing football and doing MMA, and then it felt like work. I felt like I was analyzing tape. And then I never kind of came back. Now I just watch the highlights every weekend. But one of the things that we do is we put together, we call it the Dispatch. Basically, we collect like some military news stories, some culture stories, and then we do some original reporting on sports. And we get all the stats and scores. We package it all up and we mail it to guys at basic training, recruit training and basic training, so they can know who's winning what games and stuff like that.
It must not be Paris Island or San Diego because we don't have time to read that stuff. We don't.
You do. You just do that instead of sleeping. You do it on the toilet.
No. I need my 8 hours. Okay, Firewatch for 2. maybe you'll get like 6 hours or
Maybe.
5 at least, maybe.
Yeah. But so Tori Rich is our sports editor, and every day he comes in, he's like, "Did you hear about this thing?" And I'm like, "Dude, I've been reading about airplanes for 9 hours. I haven't
That's
heard,
your
but I
candy.
appreciate you keeping me hip." So,
Well, hey, Fleek, I just got a time check here. I mean, this has been a great interview. We just don't want to, we don't want to run it too much over. I know you got to do
my
stuff.
wife is waiting for me to come up to put the kiddo to bed too.
I've got to go. Yeah, I've got to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, man. I got to start working out and losing this gut.
That's the bright side of being a writer, is that my workday starts at 9, which is 3 hours later than it ever did in the Marines.
All right. All right. Well, thanks for hopping on with us, and
yeah, thanks, Alex.
Keep in touch with us, man.
Dude, yeah.
It was a real pleasure. It's great to meet you guys. Thanks for
We'll
having me on.
we'll get a date for you to come and talk to us. Hey, by the way, sorry, and I'm bringing
He's
this
trying
on
to
more.
go.
Sorry, Grand Prix, Music City Grand Prix. Do you want to go?
I don't even know what that is, but probably.
The second annual Music City Grand Prix. It's Indy cars. You said you were a car guy,
cool.
and it's in Nashville. It's August 5th, 6th, and 7th, and I might have some extra tickets.
I might be in DC then. I'll check, but that's pretty rad. But also, I really appreciate it.
I've got a free voucher for Friday, and then Tim McGraw is playing Saturday night. And they got fireworks on Sunday, so it's gonna be
it sounds
huge.
like exactly when, like, once a year they make me come. Our office is in DC, and like once a year they make me come up there for a week. And so it sounds like the week that it would happen.
All right, well, hey, let me know. I'll hook you up.
You got it. Honestly, guys, it's been a real pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Yes.
Thanks, Alex.
Pleasure. Thanks for your service. Thanks for hopping on with us. Thanks for everything, buddy.
Thanks, Proven Valor. See you,
Ditto.
Jeff.
Valor.
Ditto. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Yeah,
Yes,
see you
sir.
guys.